And now we're joined by the great Max Olson for his story of innovation and change, which is sponsored by Invesco QQQ, the official ETF of the NCAA. Max, our portal authority, who looks like he's had a few Red Bulls. I don't know. I would be if I were in his position. I don't know how this man sleeps, is on top of every single portal change. And, you can find him on Twitter if you're not following him on Twitter on The Athletic. You're not a college football fan. But he wrote a really good story that's going to be running in The Athletic here in the near future about the portal and the impact it's having on some of the smaller programs that have really dynamic players. Max, what was your idea when you came up with the story, and what is your main takeaway for the readers here?
Yeah, I think the change that we're kind of tracking here as we go through another transfer portal cycle, that we're kind of seeing the same old thing here, where we're in this month of December, where as soon as a player goes into the portal, he becomes extremely popular and everyone wants him and everyone thinks he's the next best thing. And certainly in this cycle, we are seeing, as we've seen in recent years, the best players in the group of five at this point are almost kind of programmed to say in their heads of, okay, if I go have a big year, I want to try and test the portal and see if I can go play at a Power 5 level. And, right now, you go look at the all-conference teams in Conference USA, 17 of those players are currently in the transfer portal. You've got the player of the year in the MAC, the defensive player of the year in the American Conference, the three-time Sun Belt player of the year. They're all in the portal here. And so, this is a story really about the G5 talent drain. And I think there's two sides to this story. On the team side, I think it's a really intriguing opportunity, especially if you're one of these Power 5 schools that is not blessed with a collective that's working with millions and millions of dollars to spend on talent here. You're kind of trying to figure out how can we be efficient here in upgrading the roster while not having to compete for these big time guys. There's very good players in the transfer portal who can come in and be starters and maybe even have NFL potential. We've seen a bunch of them just get invited to the Senior Bowl this year. And I think that there's opportunity there, especially when you think back to the pandemic and how a lot of really, talented players slipped through the cracks during the recruiting process because of how everything was shut down and these schools are not taking as many high schoolers. I think there's opportunity there to really upgrade your roster. And we've seen a lot of success stories on the player side of it. Wanted to do a little bit more research just to see how much does it really pay off. And I think that, you go look at last year's cycle, there was more than 200 group of five players, the scholarship players that transfer from group of five to Power 5. The number doubled last year. So you saw a lot of guys get these opportunities as these schools have more room to take more players. But you look at these 186 players, and I was just curious. I mean, how many of them really had great years this year? And, there's lots of success stories we all know about. Certainly the wide receivers at Colorado and Braden Fisk at Florida State and Tez Walker. And there's a lot of, really talented players that prove themselves. But overall, if you look at the 186 players that went from G5 to P5, 72% of them played fewer snaps this season. 37% of them did not start a game this year. And if you take that collective group of players, they played more than 95,000 snaps in 2022. This year, the total is 60,000. So it's a big drop off for a lot of players. There's some guys that played 800, 900 snaps at a school last year and played 100 this year. So there's definitely risk on the player side in terms of it's easy to bet on yourself and say, hey, I can go here, bigger stage, opportunity to make some money. But there's certainly a lot of guys where it doesn't go the way they expected.
Yeah, I think it's you hit on something that I have referred to as the Malik Zaire corollary in the past, Max, which is like guys that you see that are flawed in one place. It's almost like a toxic relationship where a girl is like, you know what, I can fix him. I can fix him. And you see, I can get rid of these flaws. And then guys go somewhere and there's flaws are still there. And you see that. What does this mean, do you think, Max, for the future of building programs in the portal? Because it seems like if you're hitting at 50% of taking guys from the portal and they become solid starter level quality players, you're doing pretty good.
Yeah.
What does this mean for the future of roster building?
Well, I think if you're a head coach in the group of five, and I've talked to plenty of them over the past year about this predicament for them, and look, they understand like they're all trying to win and move up and make more money. So you can't totally fault a player for doing the same thing. But I think if you're a head coach in a group of five and you've got players, you've got talent, you need to go win your league and get out of there while you have the opportunity, because nothing's promised in terms of next year's roster. And you look at UTEP, for example, and UTEP did not have a good year. They went 3-9, but their new coach that they just brought in, Scotty Walden, when he gets there, they've already had 21 scholarship players into the portal. 7 of them are all conference guys. A bunch of them are going to get Power 5 opportunities. And so I think when you talk to the coaches at Group of 5 level, it's really just hard to hold together a team. You are hired to go find these gems in recruiting, these 3-star guys that other people didn't want, and develop them into starters and difference makers. But as soon as they blow up, then they're going to have the attention of Power 5 schools that have these deep scouting departments and are looking to upgrade the roster. And look, there's been some guys, to take the UTEP example. There's guys like Jacob Cowing that went to Arizona, or Jeremiah Byers went to Florida State. Hey, great player. They can definitely play at a Power 5 level, but I think a lot of times for some of these players, the grass maybe isn't necessarily greener when you look at not just the decline in playing time, but then what is that going to do for your draft potential, for getting camp invites, for making a roster, having a pro future. So, it's something that I think if you're a Group of 5 player, you got to be very realistic and extremely careful when you go through this process, because you're right. A lot of times, this can get overhyped a little bit. And the truth is, these Power 5 programs, oftentimes they're just looking for depth. They're not necessarily looking to promise you anything and make you the guy. In some cases, you're being brought in without knowing it to go motivate a younger player to get better. And so there's a lot of success stories, but overall, I think on the player side, you got to be cautious.
It is kind of an interesting thought process, and we'll get you out of here with this one, Max. But the notion that going to a bigger school always seems to be, both in recruiting and at the college level in the portal, that you're better off at that place, or that there's a faster ticket to the NFL if you go to a bigger school. And I think that the NFL draft has shown us that, if you're really good and you play a lot, they'll find you. A lot of the best Pro Bowlers that we've seen, there's plenty of examples of guys who didn't play at a high level. Khalil Mack is one that I remember. He was in the MAC, and when I was covering an Ohio State game once, he came in and blew up their entire offense from Buffalo, and lo and behold, turned into a top 10 pick and is one of the best pros we've seen. So I wonder if these data points will be shared and used, because, I also feel bad for Group of 5 coaches who are trying to build something themselves, because it's impossible to do it. It's almost like they're trying to thread a needle between being right and too right.
Yeah, and I think that's well said. And I think, the thing in recruiting that we've always known is that new is always better, right? And so that's partially you go in and people get very excited about, oh, this guy has got some potential and we know what we've got in our room, and so let's go bring this guy in and see if maybe he's better than what we've got. And I think that's a very exciting opportunity for a lot of what Group of 5 player doesn't believe, hey, if I'm given the opportunity, I'm going to bust my butt and I'm going to I can play at the highest level and be a starter and really compete and stuff. And so, the portal does kind of inspire this bet on yourself kind of notion a little bit, that go in there and you have a chance to make money and go where you belong. Right. And so I think that it's great to see that they land these Power 5 opportunities. The question is, are they good opportunities? You're right. Or is bigger always better in some of these cases? And so be interested to continue to track this. In the past, there just weren't as many of these opportunities. And so these guys were really highly fought over now. And now one thing we continue to see in the portal is there are guys in last year's cycle that went G5 to P5, and they are back in the portal because it did not go the way they thought it would. And so you hope that they make good decisions and land places where there is real opportunity with a coach that really wants to put them on the field.